What's going on, family? New day, new beginnings. Before we get started, hit that like and share button and subscribe to Truthtrtube. And when you go to subscribe to all. As you can see by the thumbnail, suffering from family sins. The reason why I came up with this title is because I know a lot of people out there who are, going through spiritual situations, financial, relationship, mental, and so forth. A lot of people are suffering slowly, and sometimes and people don't realize that their suffering sometimes is down in their family roots. And we as a group, and individuals, we look past these things because we think these things are ordinary to us. They're just here because they're just here. And that's not the case. A lot of our situations are embedded in who we are deep down. And I think those who are far from the family, who do an outlook, who scan the area and see situation, past, present, and if you don't correct them presently where it's going, we look at things differently. Sometimes they got a family out there. I think I said this in the previous videos, when they just have a family out there who just can't get out their own way. And what I mean by that, who the men are always incarcerated, the women incarcerated, teenage pregnancy, they're never married, they never have success on a job. There's a lot of things that our family back then put in place spiritually to keep us in that place. And we as individuals, some of us don't even see it. There's families out there, we all know, and there's families out there who can't keep a job. There's families out there who've been on public assistance since the 60s. There's families, there's kids that I know who was born in a drug family, not doing the drugs, just selling it. There's people out there that we don't really take a look at. We just want to beat them down. But instead of beating them down, we should really take a look at their situation and see where it comes from. I know this young man who married into a family of sin, and he said it took him 5 years to really realize that his ex-wife family wasn't shit. He got with her, he was good. As soon as he got with her, 2 years in, he getting arrested for this, getting arrested for that, and so forth. And I know a young lady who married into a family of sin. When she got in there, everything was good. Then all of a sudden, when she got married to this man, it just went stagnant. This man's spirit dragged her down. We don't realize that there's some people in our lives that we shouldn't even deal with, but I think as human beings, it's our nature to give people a chance. But there's some people you just can't give a chance to because they don't really have things going for them. And this brings me to this point, right? We see it all the time. There's a woman out there who just blustering with energy. A man out there who's blustering with energy. And as soon as they get with this person, things come to a halt. And you wonder why. The why was you never was supposed to speak to that person at all. But you chose that person based off the so-called charisma him or her had, and not looking at the full scope of the situation, right? With me, what I usually do, I ask people questions, uncomfortable questions, 'cause I could care less, what's your credit score? How's your family? Do you have autism in your family? High blood pressure, diet? I ask questions that people don't want to ask, and 9 times out of 10, they don't want to answer. And I could care less, because when I notice you don't answer something in regards to a family question, I'm, throughout my career, throughout my life, I just don't even be bothered with you anymore, because I know where the situation is heading, and I know where the relationship is going to head. That's what sometimes when you see a lot of people, they look miserable. 20 years before, you look at their pictures, man, they beaming. Now you look at them, they just worn down. And that's because the sins within the family, the financial sins, there's some people who burn money. There's some people who can't keep a steady job. Some people who are just physically incapable of doing anything. And I'm gonna go even further. They got ugly ass families. Yeah, just keep it real. They got ugly ass families, people who are born into that. And then we don't understand why. But when you see the family, you're like, oh, I see why. As people, we're here to grow and develop. We gotta make better choices. I'm a victim of that, But one thing I realize with a person, when a person's too good, they talking too good about themselves, I'm like, I give pause. Because 9 times out of 10, it's the person who talk good about themselves who's the worst type of person. And the person who straight up with it, hey man, I got my flaws, I'm not this good at, that's a person, at least they're telling you, that's a person that's gonna try to grow and try to get better. Instead of trying to talk themselves into who they think they are, but the world see them different. The spirit sees them different. And we don't really see that, because you gotta be in tune with who you are to really look at people, observe them. Not judge them, observe them, because when you start making observations after a lengthy time, we see who you are. You can't tell a person about themselves, but your situation is worse than theirs. You can't tell a person about finance, but you're not investing. And this brings me to this. You want to know how families stay in financial sin and stay in all these sins that they have? They got something called life insurance, right? I'm not going to tell you my policy numbers, but my policy hefty. If my kids find out, they probably kill me. But they got some families, right? Parents will have a $75,000 policy, have 3 kids, 4 kids, and they have grandkids. And you saying to yourself, what can a $75,000 policy do after you buried, if you have a house, and so forth? And God forbid if you marry. That's selfishness, and that's a sin. Because your job as a parent is to make sure your kids are set, your grandkids are set. You leaving them a $75,000 policy, $100,000, that's not going to do anything for them, especially when you have kids in this day and age. And when you look at the way people are raised, struggling financially, that started somewhere. That ain't start with the person who is struggling. That started somewhere. That's the one I speak to parents my age, even before I hit my 40s. I looked at things differently. I ain't look at things the same as my friends. I wasn't really listening to older friends, especially when I know you're a friend or a family member that I know that your finances are not great, but I know they could be great, but you choose for them not to be great. That's your decision. Not an employer's decision, but your decision. Because when we see the things people spend money on, that's the kids and the grandkids' inheritance. But a lot of us don't want to be forthcoming with who we really are. You have to start calling individuals out in your family, and that's how the sin evaporates. You start shaming them. Because once you start calling them out, just like your parents, you find out, okay, do you have any investments? Do you have a will and all that? Once your parents say no, you got to get on their ass. Because you know what that leads to? That leads to the continuation of poverty, and that shows the laziness. That's when you see some people, some families got it right, some got it wrong. It was no difference. It's just that the parents were more responsible and they cared more for their kids. The other half didn't give shit nothing about their kids. That's just like the whole motto where they say, well, I went through, my kids should go through it. When I hear someone say something like that, I think that friendship should dissolve. That family member should be banned. I won't even have no discussion with them no more. Because that shows you the type of person you are. It's a different age, a different day, okay? Our grandparents were ignorant, and our parents shouldn't be ignorant, and we definitely shouldn't be ignorant. Instead of doing things that are not going to build your kids or build you as a person, we need to look at things differently, in a different light. Because the more we look at things differently, the better we become as individuals. People look at things the same way, just like I know a couple people, that same motto shit they say, the same thing, the motto, and the kids worship them. That fucking be me. I won't even speak to my parents. Let one of my uncles tell one of my cousins that, and they tell me, I won't even deal with my uncles or my aunt or anyone, because I feel that's a selfish way of being. It's 2 different days. That was then, this is now. That's what sometimes when I see people hating on people with money, black, white, you know what? I don't hate on them. You know something? Because they knew at that time what their priorities were. And you got to give them credit for planning things in advance. Because ignorance is a sin. And a lot of young kids out there my age, the grandkids coming up, even the toddlers, they suffering from the sins of the grandparents and the great-grandparents. And that's one thing about me, especially being black. I don't like ignorance. Especially, you can make a little excuse stating that, we ain't have, the knowledge and everything as it is today. Yeah, you did. It's called books. Barnes and Nobles. It was Barnes and Nobles back then. Where you could pick up a finance book, where you could pick up a book and learn. It pisses me off when grown people don't know shit. And it's sad. Family, this is just my opinions. This is just me. But anybody out there who have parents or grandparents, start questioning their ass. Ask them straight up, hey, what do you have left, will, life insurance, investments? Start speaking to them. And if they don't have anything in place, you could love them, but I won't even communicate with them. I wouldn't be bothered with them no more. Because that show you how much they love you. But then when you bury their ass, they want all the love. It's a new day and age. Stop worshiping those who don't need worship. If our parents have that same thinking as our grandparents and great-grandparents, we should just straight up dub them. And you worry about what you got to worry about. So I'm tired of seeing young men and young women out there struggling on their own, knowing what's coming down the pipe. Stand up. They're blood, but you want to know something? You got to think about yourself the same way they thought about themselves, because they wasn't fucking thinking about you. Don't allow the sins of the family overtake who you want to be. You leave those individuals alone and you move on with your life. You could check on them, blah, blah. Yeah, I won't even check on them. That's just me. But they want to be selfish. It's time for you you to be selfish and make sure your kids are straight. All the designer materialistic shit, that's gonna come. Change your ways and change the way you think and remove those sins, because when it continuously carry on, it's not gonna get better. Family, drop me a like, drop me a comment, and like I said before, subscribe to Truthtrtube. Thank you.